Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Triple N Media. I am Dr. Nik Nikam, and this is a Triple N talk show. The feature presentation is why the GOP is losing elections in all directions. It looks like it is a ship without a radar, ship without a direction, ship without a captain or main vision. Let's look at and see some of the points that might have contributed to a colossal loss of the Republican control over the Congress in the last 2 years, and especially in this recent election. Certainly, the Georgia runoff was no surprise to me. But before I go any further, I want to tell you I believe in conservative values. I'm not particularly married to a candidate nor a party, but I do strongly believe in conservative values because that's what I grew up, and as a heart doctor, I use conservative approach when I'm treating patients. I'm dealing with life, same way we expect politicians to be making sure that they are representing the people who elected them. As I said, the Georgia election was no surprise to me. I knew this long before. There was a huge disparity between two candidates in terms of their accomplishments, in terms of their political savviness, in terms of their ability to be supported by their party, and of course, all the support from the like the media and the techs who gave an extremely strong edge for the Democratic candidate versus the Republican candidate. But this is just the tip of the iceberg. It is not that the Democrats fared better, but it is the Republicans who failed to do even the basic necessary things that needed to get the party alive and vibrant. The GOP needs to produce a candidate who has a clean record. Nobody has a perfect record, let's face it. And it's a matter of is your record cleaner than the candidate against whom you're running? And that is extremely important. In elections, it is not the politics that matters, it is the people's personal lives which is going to be drawn as a dirty laundry day in and day out on the television. So let's not forget that. The next thing I have serious concerns about is the mail-in ballot imbalance. I'm not saying mail-in ballots are wrong, but what I'm saying is mail-in ballot imbalance. That is, the Democrats have a significant advantage in getting mail-in ballots, whereas the GOP has sort of written it off, so to speak, from talking to so many people. And this is something where the GOP camp has to spend a lot of time and energy and try to get these mail-in ballots, even if they have to knock on doors, get every person to fill out their ballots and help them to drop their ballots in the ballot boxes. That's what needs to be done if you want to be competitive with the Democrats in terms of getting a fair number of mail-in ballots, because there are a lot of people who cannot come to the election places, nor do they can make it on other days. So the mail-in ballots is of paramount importance. That's where most of the Republicans have lost their elections, because the number of mail-in ballots were significantly higher in the Democratic camps compared to that of the GOP camps. And as far as being honest and ethical in all this, it is important to be honest and ethical, but that's not of paramount importance in elections when you're running for an office. When you're running for an office, you need to have a clean record, you need to have a clear message, and you need to be very humble, and you need to be approachable by not only your main followers, but the independents, the ethnic groups, and the minorities. And as I told you already, the GOP need to learn to knock on door to door to get these mail-in ballots taken care of so that we have. Of course, I believe in voter ID. I come from India. where 900 million people vote in the general election. There's a national election committee that oversees the election throughout the entire country. That is a reform we would like to see here in the United States. I don't have much hopes for that, but the important thing is we need uniform standard election guidelines independent of the party that is ruling, which is making laws in the middle of an election or during ballot counting and bringing in new ballots after almost 90% of the votes have been counted. These are things which doesn't speak well of a great democratic society such as America. See, I'm not criticizing what is happening in this country, but I'm just pointing out these facts so that we understand as where the GOP fell short versus the Democrats getting the upper hand during elections consistently because they control the key states where the votes and the seats matter most. Now the fact that the Republicans have lost the 50th seat, they won't even get equal representation in the committees. As a result, they're going to have a serious setback in getting anything they would like to question or block. So much for the runoff elections. And I mentioned about the election reform, and I talked about how elections are held in India. But are we going to see an election reform in this country? Do you think the democratic states which control the election, the ballot boxes, and the counting machines and all this, they're going to give up their freedom to a third party, an independent party? Do we really need that in order to ensure that we have fair elections? That's something we need to think about it. And voter ID is a must. I don't see why you don't require a voter ID, whereas if you want to walk into your employment, you need to punch in your ID card. When you get on the plane, you need an ID card. When you get into any government office, you need to have an ID card. And I don't see why you don't need an ID card when you walk into vote during elections. Again, when it comes to messaging, the GOP, I don't know what their main message is. The GOP, the main message and the vision is very scanty and fragmented. And it is not unified. It is not throughout the nation the same thing we are talking about. It is all fragmented. It is the individuals running their own method instead of a national message which has to be propagated throughout the entire country. You see, the Democrats know better. They appeal to people's feelings more so than their pocketbooks. We are talking about the economy, the interest rates, the inflation, and the recession and all these things. I don't think anybody bothered about that because people are spending more money than they ever did. More people are employed than there was ever such a number before in the decades. So people are not concerned about this. They are appealing to the people. The Democrats were appealing to the people's emotions. Even though 90% of the people are not affected by what the Democrats are talking about, like abortion, women's rights. It doesn't apply to 90% of the people. 90% of the people don't even care that they are concerned about abortion or even, for that matter, women's rights because they are independent working people. They are not concerned about these things being compromised. Of course, we have a serious fragmentation within the GOP camp, which makes things worse. And there are a lot of things that happen during elections, the mudslinging, the commercial ads, and last-minute use of power or abuse of power, whatever you want to call it. One example is a potential unconstitutional student loan forgiveness, which was announced just weeks before the election. We don't know how much influence it had on voters, especially those who were promised to get loan forgiveness, 20 million people we are talking about. But anyway, the Supreme Court is going to take up this argument in February of 2023. But even if the Supreme Court rules that the student loan forgiveness was unconstitutional, it doesn't matter. It's already done the damage. They already got what they wanted. The Democrats already got what they wanted. But the thing is, these things happen, but we need to hold people accountable for when they make unconstitutional decisions that can have a significant impact on the country's future, on the people in the United States. And let's face it, everybody knows this. The Democratic Party is supplied or supported or sort of protected by the mega $1 million donations by the big tech companies. And of course, they have the blanket of mainstream media, which is forever they're like a dome of protection against any kind of radiation or nuclear blast, so to speak of. So much so, the Hunter Biden story was not even covered in most of the mainstream media, even though it has been a big topic after Twitter released all those emails or text messages and inside conversations that showed that the story from the New York Post, which was suppressed, was not the right thing to do. You get the message. GOP needs a new manual on how to be inclusive of people from all walks of life and ethnic backgrounds. I cannot overemphasize this fact. This is a large segment of the people that the GOP camp has totally ignored, which has cost them seats, especially in close elections in the primaries. In most close elections in the primaries, the trump card are the independent voters, the minorities, the ethnic groups, and these are the ones who are going to decide who is going to be elected. So why aren't we talking to the independents, the minority groups, the ethnic groups? Why aren't we meeting these people in their places and getting familiar with them, getting yourselves exposed so that if your election runs into a runoff, at least they know who you are. Most of the time, they don't know who the GOP candidate is and what they stand for. And that's why we lose a lot of these runoff elections consistently, because the Democrats do a better job reaching out to these ethnic groups, the independents, and the minorities. I mean, that's my personal opinion. You don't have to agree with me. And as I told you, the independents, the ethnic groups, and the minorities become the trump card in runoff elections. So it pays to be making friends with independents, minorities, and even choosing candidates from the ethnic groups, from the minorities, so that you are able to reach out to these people so that you have a much broader representation in the House and perhaps in the Senate. Certainly, the American political system, with reference to the elections, is going through what I call a transformation. A transformation which has happened in Europe and UK to a certain degree, where they all went through this, and the end result we have is more or less a socialistic society where the government controls everything, from your jobs, from your paychecks, from your healthcare, and what you do and what you cannot do. And this evolution is rapidly progressing here in the United States, and it may take very aggressive steps to counter these crosswinds if we want to maintain sanity and democracy in the United States. I have a message for the GOP strategists. They need to keep these points which I have been discussing, and they need to first, have a main mission for the entire nation and propagate that through the entire system at the federal level, at the state level, at the city level, at the council level, and across the country. They need candidates who are qualified, who are knowledgeable, and who can reach out to the independents, the minorities, and the ethnic groups I talked about. And these members need to work as a team. They are not just individual candidates running to get a position in the Congress or the House of Representatives or the Senate, but they are a member of the team. The chain is only as strong as its links, which are the members. Finally, let's make it clear. One person doesn't make a party. one person can certainly have a significant influence in how the party can function. But we need to focus more on the party than on an individual and try to see how we can come together as a team rather than as individuals. So, ladies and gentlemen, these are some of my thoughts. I would like to hear your point of view. Thank you so much for watching this presentation, and we have numerous presentations here on our Triple N Media. We got close to 2,400 videos, 32,000 subscribers. Please do subscribe to our YouTube channel, and I will see you in the next presentation. Thank you so much.